Welcome to episode 183 of SLP. Strap yourselves in for a full look back at the last week in Rugby League. We have Super League and Summer Bash to cover off, Origin squads, face painting tales, and where to get your free pies on a bank holiday weekend. There's plenty to come on your favourite podcast, the Super League Pod. Hello everyone, you're listening along to episode 183 of the Super League Pod. I'm your regular host, Mark, and with me this week is Tim G in the co-host chair. No, not too much gloating, I hope, from you this week, Tim, because I'd have gone light on you, I'm sure.
No, I mean, there's nothing to gloat about, really, when you're in the league position that we're in. But it was pleasing, let's just say that much, that this week of all weeks that we got the result.
Yeah, so let's for anyone that's a new listener just joining us, I'm a Wigan fan and Tim is a Hull Kingston Rovers fan, amongst all the other sort of levels of rugby league that Tim's involved in. That's his Super League side. Right, Tim, we've got plenty to go through this week. I'm going to relive the Summer Bash weekend.
Are you allowed to relive it, or all of the bits that we have to censor?
I should be able to tell you pretty much everything that went on over the weekend. There wasn't too much that I'll have to leave out. Then we'll hit as many news stories as we can fit in. We've got quite a lot. I think we've just decided that before recording that we're going to fit in a quick chat on the Origin squads that were announced today as well. And then Super League reviews and a full recap of the other results with fan views in on the Bash games. I think we've got something in on every one of some Bash games, which is better than we did for the Super League games in terms of games that I covered with the listener fan reviews, which is excellent. Before we get going on any of that, there's just a couple of things I wanted to touch off, and then there's a question we had sent in that I thought is an interesting one that I thought I'd maybe throw out there for us to get our views on there, Tim. So, and it kind of all follows through a similar-ish kind of theme. So those who have been paying attention across the social media platforms or just looking at what's come up on your podcast feeds if you subscribe this weekend, I've done a couple of new shows during the last week that we're branding them as SLP shorts, the kind of half an hour long episodes. The first was a chat about the Magic weekend, where it goes next and how it might be looked to change or anything like that. I chatted to Josh McAllister, who is he runs the RL Latest Twitter account. He's a budding sports journalist, so it was great to have a new voice on the show.
Yeah, I enjoyed listening to that one. That was a good little chat. Did get me thinking about a few things, and one of the venues that you didn't sort of touch on a possibility of going back to was, of course, Murrayfield, where we had the Murrayfield Magic a couple of times. But given the decline of the game in Scotland, it's probably an interesting one to think about.
Well, if they're not going to take Scotland internationals to Scotland, I'm not sure that there's any serious consideration of the game up there, which isn't a good thing at all. But
no,
yeah, it's not. You're right. It wasn't one that we really seriously considered. But we talked a lot about where Magic could go in terms of venues, and also about where Magic could go in terms of the format and the structure and those sorts of things. We've actually got a question that's come in that's kind of around that vein in a bit. And then I did one over the weekend as well with Nate, who does the new Rugby League in America podcast that we spoke about a few weeks ago. He's had lots of other guests on his show, and we kind of had a chat that turned into almost an evening, really. We spoke at some length. I chopped out a show wanting to cover the points I wanted to cover with him, which was basically what's going on in America for the domestic scene, the national side, and those sorts of things. So that's available as a show. And then Nate's going to be putting up a show during this week that's going to be a bit longer version of that conversation, where we kind of got a bit excited. We'd had a few beers, I'd had a few beers, he'd had a few whiskies by that point, and we were kind of getting a bit excited about what could happen if, in a perfect world almost. So look out for that on his feed. It's podcast RLA on Twitter if you want to get around Nate's show.
Now, this just might be a me thing, but when I hear the name Rugby League in America, I start doing Tiffany's Kids in America. That just is, as soon as I see the words written, that just sparks off in my head. But that could just be a weird musical association thing.
I don't think it is, because I'm pretty sure a couple of other people have mentioned that, and it was kind of running through my head as well. Late last night when I was editing the show together and putting it up, I was thinking, we're Rugby League in America, that sort of thing. Yeah, and that came after, a long weekend watching rugby again, rinse and repeat as it was. Did you catch much of the Summer Bash on TV at all? I know you've been enjoying the delights of the seaside and those sorts of things over the weekend, but did you catch?
I got a little bit. I got the League against Toronto game. I was dual screening on Saturday night, so I had the Champions League final on the TV, and then I had that on the iPad, and I was sort of flicking between the two of them as best I could. I didn't get much of the rest of the day through doing various things with the family and being around the house. I did watch a little bit of the Barrow game, but it was only sort of dipping in and out amongst all the other things, as much as anything else, all the other sporting things that were going on, because I had the cricket listening to, and I was doing a little bit of other stuff, and popped over to see some other family. So here, there, and everywhere.
It was a busy weekend, and I'm sure, just like you, lots of people's attention was elsewhere, because hardly any of them were at Bloomfield Road with us over the weekend, which was one of the big shames of the Summer Bash. People might have spotted us on the TV. We're behind the sticks in the north stand end of the ground. On Saturday there was a few of us wearing our Super League pod t-shirts, and then there was about a dozen or so of us on Saturday. Our numbers were thinned a little bit for Sunday, but that was kind of the order of the weekend as things went. It was a real fun weekend. The kind of highlights that stand out. People who have been watching the Toronto League game, as it was getting into the closing stages, would have heard on the Sky commentary Barry Mack dropping in a "strap yourselves in, kids," in honour of our fallen former dad, Tom, who is, as Barry said, too busy for us now. But he was able to pop down for a short while, a couple of games on Saturday, and that was all we saw of old dad. But former co-host Tom, for those who are new to the show, popped along for a little bit of the Summer Bash, but Barry also came over to say hello, and the most striking thing really when he came to say hello is his new set of teeth. You hear him joking about it on the TV a little bit and that sort of thing, but wow, they are in neat order and very, very white. Barry's new teeth are. We sort of, I wasn't sure whether to be whether to take the mick out of them or be really impressed by them. Do you get what I mean?
Equally, Barry McDermott is never someone I'd want to be taking the mick out of too much, just in case he took it the wrong way.
Well, he sort of shared an anecdote with us where he'd been out drinking with a couple of his former teammates recently, and they basically had the same reaction that I'd had, that the initial response is to take the mick, and then a couple of hours into the night they were asking him where did he get them done, how much were they, do you think they're going to hook him up with a consultation, that sort of thing, which is pretty much, I think, everyone's reaction to that new top set of teeth he's got rocking on there. So it was great to see Barry, as it always is at the Summer Bash. The other highlight of the first day really was as the evening was wearing down, the bar staff had very much stocked up and expected similar crowds to last year, with no awareness of what teams were actually involved and that there was no Bradford Bulls or Hull KR, and they'd way overdone it on the food on the stalls. So with about half an hour left of the last game, the staff popped out with trays full of pies that they basically couldn't sell. So
fair enough.
So they gave out for free. So yeah, that really cheered us up at the end of the first day, because on the first day of action, we basically saw a ratio of greater than three tries to one scored at the end away from us at the south end of the ground. We were at the north end of the ground. I think the final points tally on day one was 54 points scored at the north end and 174 points scored at the south end, and that included the women's game that kicked things off. That one they really screwed us over on that one, did Bradford Bulls ladies. They started with a flourish when they were running the other way, and then they they kind of let Featherstone score some points in the second half, and it kind of kept that similar vein kept going, and right up until the very last moment of that day one, we really were distant from all the important action until the Ben Reynolds kick that has been a bit of a talking point, which we'll get onto
we'll discuss that later
in the game reviews. Yeah, and day two was not as much drinking as day one. There was a few, not as much drinking for all of us as day one. Some people of the Nadins maybe enjoyed the fruit ciders a little bit more on day two than the rest of us, but we were all sort of had other things we needed to get polished off by the end of the day, that we weren't quite as boozy on the second day. But it didn't stop the buffoonery, shall we say.
Yeah. So
I walked into the ground. Me and Cass walked into the ground, and we turned the corner to go towards the stand, and there was a face painting stall, and Phil Nadin and Dom Hodgson, who people have heard contributing to the show over the years, were both stood there queuing up to get their face painted as tigers because that one looked the most exciting of the ones that the woman had on a little preview thing there. So go to our Instagram page and you'll see that. And then during the first game, which was London versus Toulouse, the halftime fan race that they'd put on throughout the summer bash, where they got people in inflatable costumes and made them run around half the pitch, jump over some hurdles. Well, Toulouse obviously didn't have a big following there, and the ground announcer was the same ground announcer who does the Leeds game, so Dom has sort of a bit of a relationship with him over Twitter and that sort of thing over the years. So it picked Dom out and come and seen us, and then when he saw the face paint, he was like, "You're definitely up for this then." So got Dom down to do the half-time race against a London Broncos fan who was dressed as the Honey Monster. Now, what transpired though, unfortunately, was this was the game that the Blackpool Masters had chosen to play a game of Masters Rugby League during the half-time interval as well, to showcase that great version of our game. But what that meant was, instead of running just halfway across the half of the pitch and then back in down the halfway line, this was the one event of the weekend where they would be running all the way around the full pitch. So Dom, dressed as a unicorn with a princess hat on, had to do a full lap of the Bloomfield Road.
To be fair though, if costume running was a sport, you've got no finer exponent of the sport of costume running in Mr. Dom Hodgson.
Well, that is a fair point. There's a great picture of him sort of about 3/4 of the way around that one of our listeners got, that was shared onto our Instagram feed. So go to @SuperLeaguePod on Instagram if you're not already on board with that, and check out some clowns in.
So to give you the other side of the story of this. So I've been on a dive and been a long climb back up to the car park. Get back up to the car, get my phone out, and just sitting in the car as we're on our way back. And the first thing I see is a picture of Dom in full regalia and his face paint, and I'm just like, wow. They've had a good day.
that was at quarter past. That was at half
completely
past
out of context. You see that and you think, okay, they've had a pretty good day.
But it was a lot of fun, a lot of good fun. They were sort of the main highlights. There was a lot of trying to catch kicks as the games wore on. There wasn't loads of people that stuck around for all the games, and that's one of the reasons that the attendances were poor.
It did look on the brief bits I watched on the TV, and obviously even the Leeds Toronto game, it did look quite empty. And it's like, I wondered if it was just where the camera positioning was, or the fact that they had all the stadium open and they could have concentrated everybody into two bits or something like that.
Yeah, I mean the people kind of did concentrate pretty much into half of the stadium anyway, but it was just fans in the Championship are even less bothered about watching other games from the Championship than fans in the Super League are of watching other games from the Super League, was the main impression I took from the weekend. And I felt it every single year as well. They don't come out in numbers and stick around in numbers. There was a group of Barrow fans who were sat near us all weekend that stayed there through thick and thin, and there was a group of London fans at the other end, a merry band of them that sat around through all of it.
They're just both sets just grateful to see as many games as they can, given the effort they have to go to watch a normal game.
Well, exactly. But that was kind of really it, other than people who looked like neutrals. There was a group sat below us that had